This is the Soulfilled Sisterhood podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist and an empowerment mentor for women. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute, nor is it to convey professional, psychological, financial, or medical advice. If you could use such services, please seek them out from someone you trust. Now here is today's episode. Episode 131. Before we dive into today's episode, if you are liking what you're hearing on the Soulfilled Sisterhood podcast, I encourage you to go out to iTunes and leave me either a star rating and/or go in there and put in an actual review itself. It helps with the algorithms, which then helps promote the podcast for other women to find it when they're searching in iTunes. Thank you again for your support. Now here is today's episode. Well, welcome, sisters. Oh, I have an exciting episode coming up for you. Today, my guest is Belinda Farrell, and she is the author of Find Your Friggin' Joy. Well, I haven't read this book. She's going to share a little bit at the end of our conversation about it because I just love the name. She graduated with a BA in Spanish and English from the University of California at Berkeley and is trained in hypnotherapy, past life regression, NLP, Hawaiian chanting, and ancient Hawaiian healing, which is called HUNA. Belinda trained with Anthony Robbins, author of The Unlimited Power, and has effectively used these skills in her own life. She has completed 18 fire walks. When Belinda was 48, she collapsed with herniated disc and spinal nerve damage. Threatened with paralysis by her medical doctors if she didn't have surgery, Belinda instead chose to apply the ancient Hawaiian healing practices she had been learning the previous 3 years, which are covered in this book. Her back completely healed, including childhood scoliosis. For 15 years, she has been sharing these healing practices with others, offering reconnective healing and HUNA classes, and taking clients to Hawaii to teach HUNA and swim with the wild spinner dolphins. Well, Belinda, I am so excited for you to be on today and talk with you.
Oh, it's my honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Would you first share just a little bit with the ladies who are listening? What is HUNA? And if I'm not pronouncing that right, please correct me.
No, you're absolutely right. It means secret, like you're withholding a secret, only these secrets are finally being able to be released to everyone. When I was studying hypnosis on the big island of Hawaii, some Hawaiians came in and started to teach us some of the basics of HUNA, which is forgiveness. And taught us a process called Ho'oponopono, which is very much outlined and capitalized on my book. And it's about making right inside of you. So you're clearing up all of the darkness of your soul, the plaque of your soul from the past. And when you do that, you become lighter, you become in the present time, and happier. That's what it's all about, in reaching your higher self. So HUNA is about taking responsibility for everything that happens to you in your life. And if you can take responsibility for creating it, then you can also uncreate it. So that's what I learned, and it's an ongoing process, to say the least.
Yeah, I think really like for any of our lives, right, we learn sometimes helpful things as we're growing up and sometimes not so much. And I like to say, if we've learned it, we can absolutely unlearn it.
Right.
And it's being on that spiritual path is more of continuously evolving and shifting and changing, but being open to being able to do that.
That's correct. For me, it was when I started doing the HUNA, when I started doing the forgiveness process, I could feel inside of me that there were shifts going on, and I was feeling lighter. And when you can get something from a process, it's like the proof is in the pudding. If it works, why not fix it? Because it's working. So I started to really go deeper. And I learned that my unconscious mind, which loves you, everybody has that because the unconscious runs your body. When I started to move some of this stuff out of the past, it would say to me, well, gee, she could handle this. Let's see if she can handle that. And we'll go deeper and deeper. And then pretty soon you're getting to the root cause of whatever was ailing you. For me, it was my back. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I had been saying some very bad things to myself that I didn't realize, like I couldn't support myself, like I couldn't take care of myself. And so when you're saying things like that, destructive stuff, the organ that responds to that will do exactly what you told it to do. And that's my spine, because it was holding me up and I was telling it couldn't hold me up. So it said, all right, take this, collapse.
Yeah. Share a little bit. Let's back up just a little bit. And what really led you to learning HUNA? Like you have got this beautiful background of all these incredible things that you have done. And I'm just going to share just a little bit before we go back to that question. But ladies, I was looking at her biography and I listened to some other podcasts that Belinda was on, and they were sharing, she's been a third grade teacher. She's played the character Snow White in Disneyland. She's been a TV news reporter. She used to be a precision stunt car driver for TV commercials and films. She's the mother of 2 grown children. You have just got such a wide range of things you've done over the years. So what really started to bring you towards learning this and practicing this and now teaching others this?
I was working with Tony Robbins for about 5 years, as I said, doing the fire walks. And I wanted to go deeper. And Tony really didn't go very deep. He just kind of had a blunt end, didn't want people to lose control of their emotions and start crying. And then he couldn't have any control over the audience. So I was just curious about the unconscious. And so I got into hypnosis outside of the Tony Robbins group, and I got fascinated with it. And then the master course was being held in Hawaii, and so that's why I went. I went to Hawaii even though I was afraid of water, and water was surrounding me completely. And it was an accident with the HUNA, because into the class of hypnosis come these very learned and beautiful Hawaiian teachers who taught us a little bit about the HUNA. So it was just kind of an accident that it happened. Ergo, there I was in the middle of that, and then I wanted to learn more. And I literally begged the Hawaiian teacher to teach me the chants.
I love it.
Yeah, I wouldn't go away. I'd show up at 4:00 in the morning on his doorstep.
You were one of those persistent students.
Oh, yeah. I was not going anywhere because I knew that somehow I had been taught this and I didn't learn it at the time. If you believe in some type of regeneration. And I thought, okay, this is my chance to really learn it and to teach it to others. So that's what happened. And then he became my teacher. And now I have 3 CDs. 1 CD got me banished from my group because he said he thought he could be the only one to teach that. You can't own the energy of the universe. You can't. And the chants are for everyone. They're not for any one person. So, yeah, it was very interesting how that all transpired. But I made the right decision. And Chant and Forgiveness is a CD and an MP3. It's been listened to all over the world and continues to change lives.
Beautiful. And ladies, just so you know, I'll have Belinda's website link and everything. We'll talk about it here at the end of the episode, but I'll have it on the show notes too, where you can get it, because we were talking before I hit record. I was asking if she could do a little bit of the chanting so you could kind of hear it. And due to her voice today,
hoarseness.
she's unable. Yeah, unable to do that, which is totally fine because she has those recordings and CDs out there where you can purchase that from her. So share a little bit more then, Belinda. You had said on your website as well that as you were going through this and you were there in Hawaii, this is also part of some of the retreats, I think, if I remember correctly, that you do regarding swimming with the dolphins, because that fear of water that you had, you began to open up to that and you got in with the dolphins. So share a little bit more about that process and how this all kind of continues to work together.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I was even afraid to tell Tony that I was afraid of water because he used to do these water interventions, to help people get over their fear of water, but I was too embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I go to Hawaii and we're doing a process of reaching the higher self with our breath. And so I had been breathing deeply for about 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden I could feel and see these waves parting in my brain, and dolphins and whales just come swimming inside of me. And that was never on my radar, ever, to be with an animal in the water. And I was just fascinated with that. And it continued that night. I had dreams, and dolphins were teaching me how to swim. So that I got up that morning and I thought, I've got to go out and be with the dolphins. But I don't want to get in the water. But I got to be with the dolphins. How is that going to happen?
Right.
It was a dilemma. But my desire to go out and to be with them just overcame my fear of the water. And I had a friend who had just moved to the island to help Joan Ocean with her seminars. And he took me out. It was a really very, very stormy day. Of course, I picked the worst day to go out into the water. And he said, it's your call. We have to get through the waves to get to the other side. Oh, I just prayed. I thought I've been in death-defying things before, but this one really churned me up. But we got through. I heard the dolphins out there. A big, huge bottlenose dolphin came and just looked at me. He just stopped. I mean, he was humongous, this flicker and this just unbelievable, beautiful. And I lost my fear. It was as though I was looking at something that was me in another lifetime. And so we stayed and bonded together. And Doug really was amazed as well, because no bottlenose dolphins had really been on the Big Island. They usually have spinner dolphins. But anyway, I just started to go in more, and the water became this nurturing path for me. And I started to feel like I was one of the dolphins, part of their pod. And then I started taking people. I did that for over 20 years. I don't do it now, but it's, there's too many complications now. But they are our teachers. They are the most phenomenal teachers. They teach you how to breathe. They teach you how to be in a pod, how to be with community, how to be just totally just loving. It's amazing. They come, and you don't have to even be in Hawaii to feel their presence. If you just think of them, they'll come and they'll bless you.
Beautiful. For 20 years, you did that.
Yep.
Wow. Absolutely amazing.
10 years with groups, with large groups, and then 10 years with individual clients.
Wow.
And we would just go out from shore. We didn't go in any boats. I would just call them in, and they would listen to the chants, and they would come in.
Oh, absolutely amazing. Amazing, amazing. And I think so many different animals, mammals, creatures are just, they can be very healing and very amazing if we humans will pause and be open to what they can really teach us and show us.
Just looking into their eyes. You can look into the eyes of a horse, dog, an elephant, and you feel like you've come home, like it's bearing your soul.
Yes.
And that is just something you can't buy or anything. It's just something you feel.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, let's go back then. So on this journey you have been on, this thing called life, you've done
Is that what
so
this is
many.
called?
It is. It's a beautiful journey here.
Yeah.
But you've done so many things and workplaces, had your, own business, all these sort of things that you're doing. And it's like over and over and over, certain things you were excited about doing. And then again, just like drawn to this with working with the dolphins and being in the water, that to overcome that fear. That was the main intention. It was to be with the dolphins.
Right.
But you continue to follow this path. And then as you're learning HUNA and now you're sharing it with others, you talk about, again, within your website, you were seeing like this goes really to the fifth dimension. So would you mind sharing a little bit, like, what does that mean? Because I know for some of my listeners, I'll get some things back. They're like, oh, you blend this beautiful practical stuff with some of the woo-woo. And to me, I'm like, yeah, practical, but this I know for highly sensitives and empaths and stuff, the spiritual piece, that's part of their breathing. And if we don't have some of that in our own lives, they're not practicing it intentionally or being in it, it's as if your breath is being taken away. So
That's correct.
yeah, so I would love for you to share, because I'm all about like continuing to learn about that and the different dimensions. What do you mean, or what does it mean for that like fifth dimension kind of frequency or work?
Well, frequency is probably a better word for it. It's a higher frequency. I don't know, somebody's called it the fifth dimension or the fourth dimension. We've been at the third dimension, and that's at a lower density. And then you just start rising and rising above that and clearing all your thoughts, and you start becoming lighter. And then you rise up to this higher frequency that can heal your body. And that's the Hawaiians call it the Amakua, where you reach your Amakua. And the only way to reach it is through the unconscious mind, through the part of you that is running your body. And when you clear everything out of the unconscious, there's a pipeline that goes up to that higher frequency. And then the pipeline is clear for you then to show what desire that you have, that you want done. Like for me, it was healing my back. When I cleared these memories from my unconscious, I was really excited about climbing trees again. I used to do as a little girl. And you have to have a strong back to climb trees. So I would just get excited about climbing trees and see myself just going from limb to limb. And that gets the unconscious really excited. It's the emotional part of you. So you don't just say, heal my back, because it doesn't respond to that. You have to give it an emotional thought to think of. And so it saw, it felt.
Ladies, there were so many different interruptions during Belinda and I's conversations regarding different phone calls and text stuff. This was just part of our conversation. I clipped out some of the background noise that you hear, but this was part of our conversation that I also wanted to keep in the podcast episode so you can hear our just kind of stream of conversation.
If you can't laugh at adversity, you can't laugh, period.
Exactly.
I love laughing. That's the key to everything.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't it though?
It is.
And you know what happens? Something special happens when you laugh and you're full of joy inside. You create a drug inside your body called interleukin-2. And this interleukin-2, if you have to purchase it outright, it's about $20,000.
Oh, wow.
And it's supposed to help cure cancer. But if you laugh and you're joyful, you create millions of dollars of interleukin-2.
Yeah. So this goes back to, let's kind of wrap that back then to that fifth,
Fifth dimension.
Yeah. Where it's all about that elevation. I know the Heart Math Institute, it's one of the areas that I'm trained in, right? And I've followed them for years, and I teach some of my clients some of their things, but there's so many that, they're finding out that research is there. It's like, as we get into those elevated emotions and like what you're saying, it's the image of where you want to be and what you want to do, along with tying it to those elevated emotions like joy and excitement,
Right.
which then helps everything at that very unconscious level start to bring that forward. But so often we can get caught up into what I call the ego mind, or this level of playing field, like here on earth and our body. It's just like, but I can't do that. There's no way that's going to work for me.
Right. As soon as you get into that mindset, it just diminishes the possibility of what could be. You have to have that faith. You can't teach faith. Faith is something you're born with it, or you acquire it, or you go through a second death, come back and have more faith. But, it's hard to. I think I've always been a happy person. I've always kind of looked on the bright side of things, even when I've been down, and I have been down a lot. I mean, it's not like it's all been rosy. And if you read my book, you'll know that my son died of a drug overdose when he just turned 30. And it was devastating to lose a child. It still haunts me to this day. But you always think you could have done a little bit more, but he had back problems. And he saw me heal my back. And I told him that I had to do some work and go inside and clear up some old perceptions and illusions that I had. And once I did that, it freed me to go to these higher levels. He just wouldn't listen. You have to be ready to make a change, and you can't force people to make that change. They're either ready or not. So
it's not only, again, like you're saying, the person has to be ready, but it's so much when I encourage it often in the podcast of stay open, stay coachable, stay in that state of learning and evolving, because that can build, I think, even on that faith, as you start to see how you're feeling better and things are coming into your life with more ease. It doesn't mean that hard stuff won't happen or that there won't be challenges. Because I think there's times where it's kind of like, everyone's like, oh, everything is rainbow and unicorns. It's like, no, it's not that.
No.
We don't control what goes on in the universe, but we play a part of that.
Right.
And it's where you keep directing your focus that helps either propel you forward, or what I like to say is keep you stuck in the past. And when we keep thinking the same way, feeling the same way, you're going to keep being the same way as the future unfolds.
That's so true. And you have to be able to take that jump. It really is kind of a big jump. At the same time, when my son passed away, I lost all my money in a Ponzi scheme.
Oh, wow.
And I had just enough to pay my rent for a month, and then I had to sell everything that I could. And I went to live with my daughter. She had just had a baby, my grandson, and he saved my life because he's all joy. The child is all joy. So that little joy bubble came into my life. And I had to be happy. Gosh darn it.
Yeah, it'd be hard not to when you got a joy bubble.
Exactly. So we played together every day for about 7 months. And then I finally, by doing the cord cutting, the Ho'oponopono, money was returned to me. And I was able to live on my own again, and got a place and started doing the reconnective healing work. And it was just an amazing turnaround. If I had stayed wallowing in grief and sorrow and oh, poor me, the same thing would have kept generating, and I chose not to. So it's up to you to create the story of whatever life gives you. Yeah,
very much so.
It's a story.
I say that a lot in this podcast. I'm like, what's that inner story you've got going on? Right. Because it's when you start to recognize all the chitter chatter we've got in our head and paying attention that they're thoughts, it's like, just because you have a thought doesn't make it true. And yet there's oftentimes we give that one sentence, that one thought, such power that it can write a really quick story that is just nothing but fear and exaggerations and lies. And yet it's like we give it all the power and it takes over.
When I am confused and I don't know what to do, I go back to the 4 phrases of the Ho'oponopono, which is just, I'm sorry, I love you, I forgive you, thank you. And then I just say that to myself over and over again, and the sadness or whatever was in me for a while just dissipates. It just neutralizes.
Yeah. It's very powerful work.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, before I talk about all the ways women can find you and get your stuff and all that, share just a little bit more about your book, Find Your Frickin' Joy, or Friggin' Joy.
Well, that was a message from my higher self.
Oh, I love it.
I had a friend who used to help me with the dolphin seminars, and she was a very serious person, and she always just kind of never really laughed or smiled, but she was an amazing facilitator. And she saw this little turtle was suffering and clamoring against the rocks, and we were both just watching it, and she was just saying, oh, that poor, poor turtle. And I finally got kind of disgusted. I said, would you just find your friggin' joy? And as soon as I said that, her eyes just opened wide and she burst out laughing. And I never forgot it. I tucked that experience away. And so when it came time to naming the book, that popped in. And that's really how it happened.
I love it.
I want to make people laugh. I want to make them find their joy. Stop, bantering around and it's there. It's right inside. You just have to clear the cobwebs away.
Beautiful. Who or what, whether they're alive or not, who has inspired you?
I love Deepak Chopra.
Oh, yes.
I met him when Tony was doing seminars. And Tony Robbins is also a great teacher of mine. I may not agree with everything that he's done, but I have been so transformed because of walking on that fire, because it's like a metaphor for your life. It says, if I can do this, what else can I do that I haven't done? And that's what got me to want to drive a race car.
Wow.
I didn't even know how to drive a stick shift. And I called the racetrack over in Sonoma, and I said, I just want to drive a race car. So I enrolled in the Grand Prix road racing course for 4 days, and I was just completely enthralled with everything. They teach you physics and driving on the racetrack, and I guess I had some talent, because at the end of the 4 days, they hired me to drive for Buick and Cadillac in New York. And that's how my career started. And it was so much fun. I came back and they created a stunt course for me so I could learn how to do the spins and the slides and all the terrorist driving. And then I got a partner and we joined a racing team, and boom, off we go into the wild blue yonder, all over the world, just doing car commercials. And it was just being at the right place at the right time and saying yes.
Saying yes, yeah.
See, I could have said, no, God, I can't do that. No. I said, yes, sure, give me a chance. If I don't kill myself, I'll have a good time anyway.
Oh, fun. So fun. Well, ladies, if you want to find out more about Belinda, her website is called HUNAhealing.com, which is HUNAHEALING.com. And again, I'll have that on the show notes. I will also have all of her social media where you can find her on Facebook, LinkedIn, and even Twitter. And then again, on her website, you can go out and purchase her book, her CDs, and her downloadables for the HUNA chanting. It's out there as well. So Belinda, I just want to say thank you so much for being on today, sharing your story, what you do, and how yeah, women can continue to evolve and shift and not be held back or down by those old stories. They really can tap into that higher self and be free.
Oh, it was such an honor to be here. And I just know that people out there who are listening are just on the brink of their own self-discovery. And it's exciting.
It is exciting.
Because if not now, when?
Mm-hmm.
If not now, when? And you are the one that can. Thank you for having this show so that you can encourage people to grow. I mean, you're an amazing contributor, an angel on earth.
Well, thank you. Thank you for listening. If you haven't already, I invite you to go out to iTunes and please leave an honest rating and review. In the podcast world, this really helps other women find the podcast and they can see if it resonates with others out there. So I really appreciate all your support and leaving me a rating.